Finance special meeting Thursday, April 13th. It's actually 6:03. Sorry about that. This meeting will be recorded and made available on the TEBS website pursuant to state law. If you're attending this meeting remotely, please remember to mute your microphone unless you're speaking. Anyone participating remotely should state their name and title for the record, if applicable, at the outset of each occasion that such person is speaking. All votes taken during which any member of this body are participating remotely shall be taken by roll call unless the vote is unanimous. Chat feature will not be utilized during this meeting. All right, we will call to order. We have Steve Kirsch.
Present.
Greg Benno.
Present.
Catherine Stauffer.
Present.
Mary Hall.
Present.
Rebecca O'Donnell.
Present.
Ken Kellogg.
I'm here.
Ron Bonowski.
Here.
Heidi Mead.
He is here. He's online.
She's at her desk, Mike. She is here.
Got it. All right. And Joe Cobsa, is he with us as well?
I'm here.
And I can't look at my phone to see who else is there, Frank.
I'm here, Mike.
Perfect. I knew you were lurking somewhere. Awesome. All right. We can get started. I know Joe had done some prep work, so maybe we start with him.
Yep. Thanks, Mike. Appreciate it. Just wanted to circle back. I know the last time I was here, we left and there's a few questions people wanted us to follow up on. So hopefully we have some of that information, a little bit of updated information for you here. So Mike, hopefully you got the link of just a couple of pieces of information here. The first page, actually there's an update. First, this is just kind of a synopsis of the last time I was at the Board of Finance and we looked at, where we were trending or projecting for next year with a shortfall of about $141,000 based on, things that had changed from the time we put the budget together until now. So that's all still right there. If you remember, the two kindergarten teachers, because of enrollment for kindergarten next year, on how that may, the change in the preschool program and the accommodation of a bus to have kids brought home at 11 and brought in at 12. Some additional special ed costs from students who moved in over the course of the year. With some reductions as well, with the increase in special ed costs, we would have a little bit more of excess cost grant. We have the ARP ESSER funds. We had some heating oil and gas, diesel numbers that came in our favor. All of that coupled with the additional adjustment of 475, it put us at a 140, about a 141 shortfall for next year. That's where we stood last year. Last time we met. Have your pens though. We have some new information that Ron just reminded me. We talked about it, and my apologies for not putting it in here. And it's good information. It's moving us in the right direction. And Ron reminded me that the ADAC came in to the tune of about a savings of about $100,000 less. So that shortfall of 141 with it's actually a 101,947 savings in the ADAC puts the shortfall at a much more manageable about $41,000. So that's where we are right now. Some good news there. When I left last time, we had a couple of other tasks. One was to do the best we could at running out this year and trying to give an estimate. I know Ron, Sheila, and I are all very cautious to give out a hard and fast number. We have, when we come back to school, we have about a quarter of the school year left for students, and we have until June 30th to close everything out. A lot of open POs and whatnot. But we're thinking, we're looking at anywhere from about, finishing up at about 0 to finishing up with about possibly $500,000 surplus by the end of the year. So very unofficial. Don't let the Monroe side know about that.
I'll tell him to cover his ears.
He's sitting here, Mike.
I know.
So it really is, that's, there's a lot of work I've run, a lot of assumptions are going into that. But that's where we seem to be trending. So hopefully, I'm pretty confident, I think we're gonna end up in the positive. That's a good one. So that's our best projection right now. Again, kind of a sliding scale, so to speak. The next thing we were, I think, tasked with at the end of the last meeting was if we had, and I think part of this was to help try to mitigate the $141,000 shortfall. If we had some things that we could purchase with funds that were remaining with any realized savings at the end of this year, what would they be? So a lot of them were in the realm of facilities, technology, and textbooks. So that next sheet just kind of shows some things. I met with Dan Frosick, Paul Kors, Sheila, Mike Crowley, and these were some items that, if we could pick them off this year, this would be good. So you see there's a rooftop heating coil for Matzik, 2 rooftop AC units at Fawn Hollow, I think for the library, an AC unit for the library at Matzik, some remaining pool filter work. Half of that work is being done this year, and half is kind of budgeted in for next year. If we could pick it all off this year, that'd be great. I had Dan come up with custodial supplies, pool chemicals, cleaning chemicals, wax, stripper, Xerox, all the stuff that he puts in for $34,000. Paul gave me new teacher laptops and replacement for our security camera server, so we can accommodate more cameras to the tune of 10,000 and 12,000. We have textbooks next year approved. We have new Spanish textbooks and a new AP US history textbook to the tune of about $35,000. So about 176,600 total. That's, if we could pick any of that, those are the things that we would pick off. We also did kind of put on here somewhat separately below our, if we could pick them off with operating expenditures, we'd rather do that than bonding. Right now, these are on the capital plan, but the first and foremost, the facility study. Then there is some septic work at Massac that runs from the building to underneath the softball field. And finally, moving the stadium press box down and making some upgrades there. That's part of a bigger project with some fundraising, but those are some other areas that we just thought would be projects that we would like to pick off. Those are kind of lower ticketed capital projects. And the last piece was, I believe we were tasked with, was looking at the capital plan and prioritizing what we would want to do over, if, I guess if the funds became available, what we would want to do. So the next 2 pages show you kind of the areas that we looked at. It's a little tricky in the sense that I think a lot of the capital work is going to be dictated by the results of the facility study, but we know that, Jockey Hollow and Massac, they're not going anywhere. So if we had to move things up, or if we could move things up, a couple of the things that, we would prioritize would be the Jockey Hollow roof, which is original with the building. So it's 25 years old. They're, running around, constantly, fixing it to, get through another year. Then the Massac roof, which was, so part of the Massac roof was done about 6 or 7 years ago. The part of the roof that was done during the renovation is original to the renovation in 2003. So we would look to move that up probably 2 years. So we would look to move the Jockey Hollow roof up a year and the Massac roof up 2 years. And then we also put on there the HVAC work at Jockey Hollow. If you flip the next page to the next page, that has where we would move them up. So we would move the Jockey Hollow up 1 year, the Jockey Hollow roof up 1 year, the Massac roof up 2 years. And you kind of see how that kind of levels out the spending over the next few years. We did not necessarily move up the Jockey Hollow HVAC work, to a specific year, because I think that's going to be determined by what we find out during the facility study. But that would definitely be something that we want to move out. We're going to look really closely at some grants that are available right now. There's been a lot out there about HVAC grants, stemming from the pandemic. There was one round that already came up, but those projects needed to be already bonded and fiscally approved, and there needs to be basically shovel ready. So we obviously weren't at that point, but I know there's going to be additional rounds of HVAC work. So love to be able to time that to a place where we can take advantage of it with this. I believe those were the main questions that we were tasked with the last time we were here.
Sounds like you covered it well. I appreciate that. Anybody
Yes.
have any specifics for Joe?
Well, this is Steve, since I was the one that asked most of these questions, I will thank Joe publicly, because this is exactly what I wanted to see. I think that, number one, if you go back to all the new spend items in the 141, we got that down to 41,000. We talked about that at our last meeting.
Correct.
Given that they think they're going to come in with a surplus somewhere between 0 and 500,000. And they can do spend aheads, if you will, of 176. I think we probably ought to book that. I'm not exactly sure how we do that. But
When you say book that, you're talking about adding 41 to their budget, or?
well, somehow expecting them to do spend ahead of the 176 or maybe 41,000 of that 176, and take the.
The thing we can't do is we can't tell them how to spend the dollar.
I understand that.
So, like,
I'm talking-
if we know they have the money, it's up to them to make the decision to spend it or not. The only thing we could possibly do would be to add 41,000 to next year's budget to cover that shortfall, which I would be open to discussing, but we can't tell them to do anything specific with the money. It's all up to them.
Mike, this is Mary Hall. I have a question to Joe.
Sure.
Joe, I like the 41,881 because you've found that $100,000. My question on the 176.6, if you decided into what Mike said, how you're going to spend because you're anticipating a surplus up to 500,000, if you decided to spend some of that 176.6 into the current year's budget, would that decrease the budget that you're presenting for next year? Are these 176.6 items included in that budget, and that would be favorability into the upcoming budget?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. That's good.
And again, I'm not saying that we'll have 176. I'd like to think so, and I think that's great. But what we try to do is, list items that if we had to purchase ahead, things that we could purchase ahead. And that's where that figure comes from.
So Mike, and again, I understand we can't tell them to do any individual project. My question was, if they were to do spend ahead of $41,000 worth, then we would not have to add an additional 41,000 into next year's budget, because that 41,000 whatever the miscellaneous items would not be there. And then therefore we would not have to add the 41.
Right.
Correct.
Okay, so that's
The only reason why I threw the 41 out there was when, we did ask him last time that, if he had a crystal ball when they first did the budget, what else would he have added in? And that's why, my feeling was, I wouldn't object to adding it in, but if nobody wants to add it in, I'm fine with that too.
well, I don't
think they'll have
object.
an issue, but
No, I wouldn't object. I'm trying to figure out whether we're safe in not doing it. Right? If there's a risk, right? If they said, oh, they're going to come out really at zero, or they're going to come out at $10,000 and they're banking on that, I'd say, yeah, we absolutely have to add the 41 in. But if there's a good likelihood, and this is a question to Joe or even to Ron, that they will have at least 41,000 that they can pick off some of this, then why add the 41 in and take us back to that discussion about, you know, where does that
Right.
put the mill rate?
Right.
Otherwise, yes, I would absolutely put the 41 in. So my question is, what's the likelihood, guys? How comfortable do you feel?
I'm very comfortable, and again, we've got the $1 million special ed reserve if needed. And that's more likely than not, if something were to go sideways next year, that's where it would go.
That's right.
And we've got that buffer, so.
And this is Mary Hall again, Joe. Also, if you decide somehow in the current year between now and June 30th to bring some of that 176.6 into this year's spend, you're going to have upside in the current budget that you presented to cover that $41,000.
Absolutely.
Exactly. That's-
Absolutely. So
Is that, sorry, this is
So
Rebecca
my
O'Donnell.
take- my
sorry, Mary.
opinion is, why would we add the 41,000? He says he's gonna get $0 to $500,000. He's gonna bring in some expenditures that he was planning to spend in the next year's budget into this year, because he has rooms, and he's gonna make that call as he gets closer each month to the June 30th
Correct.
date on what he's gonna spend, and that's up to him to make that decision.
Correct. Go ahead, Rebecca.
Oh, sorry. Oh, a second. Okay, so the $1 million in the special ed reserve, is that earning interest or anything?
So it's the cash is in the bank. The
Yeah.
reserve is it's a town fund that
Yeah,
was reserved by the Board of Finance. I'm gonna say going back a couple of years now,
Yeah.
Mike, or maybe.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that it is, yes, it's
so it's
sitting there in
building something. Okay,
committed fund balance for.
It's helping Frank get his numbers.
Right.
Yes.
so it's in. what
Yeah, it's
you're
in Frank's
saying.
numbers.
Absolutely. Yes.
Okay,
Yes.
and then as far as the process, these have to be like encumbered before the end of this fiscal year.
If we were going to utilize them against the current year budget, they would
Right.
have to be encumbered
So
by
you-
June 30th.
Okay,
And I just want to make a point real quick and recognize Joe and the Board of Ed and Ron. They do this regularly when they're facing surplus, and they're looking at one-time
Right.
expenses that can be picked off. We have a couple of capital budgets, including the current one where, you know, it's been great because we've taken things that perhaps were going to be small bonding items or whatever that they've just taken care of before the end of the year, and it's appreciated. So, I mean, I have every confidence that they would take care of these things if they had the ability. So,
okay,
you know.
I mean, the other thing that could happen, and I just mentioned it because it happened last year, is there could be an unforeseen emergency repair that has to happen
Right.
too.
right.
And,
Deal with that.
you know, Monroe Elementary is an old building with old pipes
And then wiring.
and old wiring. They're all electric there right now.
Okay.
So Mike, this is Steve, to piggyback off Rebecca's question. Some of these items, it looks like we wouldn't even have to encumber, you could just go out and buy them between now and June, right?
Yeah, so,
Potentially.
yeah, we
Again, not telling you how, but
Yeah,
it's
so-
likely you could.
more likely than not, you know, due to timing and, you know, possible delays in getting stuff, we'd probably have the purchase order written by the end of the year.
Okay.
And the best time to, you know, get stuff done in a school system is over the summer.
So I'm not hearing any objection from Joe or his folks on not adding back the 41, allowing them to pick off these items, however many they want, whichever ones
Right.
they want. And I think that would be the sense of the people in this room.
I'm good with that.
Okay,
All right.
can we talk about the capital plan? So that was also something that I had asked about. Again, on the theory that we have expressed in the past about keeping our bonding levels relatively flat. Now, obviously, in total, the town's bonding obligations have gone down as the first selectman's budget and presentation and documentation have shown. So we clearly have room to bond additional from a non-impact to our bonding rating. And therefore, if we apply what we've applied in the past to the theory of level bonding, I think this would be a good plan. I'm well aware of the Jockey Hollow roof issue. I'm also well aware of the Massac issue. I was up on the roof back in 2015. So I think that's an elegant solution, and I would support modifying that plan, the budget to do this.
So, Mike, to what, this is Mary Hall again, for the record. So what Steve is asking on that $1.5 million, and I agree with him, would that go into, we would not bond, and that would be money that would be spent on the true capital, just, we would increase the
So
capital.
basically what we would do is Ken can bring up any projects he wants forward. And the funding source just gets proposed as, instead of being proposed as bonding, it gets proposed as fund balance. And we
Okay.
it'll just have to get approved by town council and the board of finance.
Great.
If it's over
It's the
150,000,
same
we have to go to
process,
town
it's the
meeting.
same process
To a special
we
appropriation.
go through, we'll go through a town meeting as well. It's just, instead of being bonding, that's getting approved, it would just be approving spending the money.
Okay.
And the only thing we have to do administratively is update the 5-year capital plan in the back of the, whatever page it is, in the 190s in the budget. It would otherwise be published to the town.
I mean,
And
I guess in theory, I don't know that it's necessary because, the plan is a 5-year outline. It's not an obligation, and every project has to get brought forward on its own and can be brought forward at any time. It would just be explaining why we're bringing it forward earlier, because we don't need to bond for it. So, I would defer to Ken on that if he thinks we need to make that
Again-
change, or we could just take them on an individual basis.
I think for the public record, I think we ought to update. Again, there's no commitment of how to spend it, but you have that in the budget, and that is going to be published to the town. So I think just for the public record, you do it, and people recognize that that's what we agreed to do, and how we choose to fund it is what you said.
And I think it goes back to Steve and Mike, to what we talked about at last week's meeting, that if we took out of the fund the 2.5 or the 2.6, that we would have additional monies that we would communicate to as we prepare the referendum, that the not spend that we had last year of, what was it finally, Ron, 3,999 or something, that X amount was going against the current operating budget for this referendum we're voting on, and that we're moving a 1.5 million of money for capital expenditures from an out year into the current year that could be used. And I think that's a nice message to share with the town.
So Mike, this is Steve again. So page 194 of the budget book is the 5-year capital plan, where the Board of Education items are listed that Joe basically has taken from. So it's page 194 that would get updated, and move those $2 values into the appropriate year and call it a day.
Mike, just to answer your question earlier, again, yes, only capital reserve funding source is going to have any impact on the operating budget, as you know. The bonding numbers are more or less discretionary. Yeah, the only comments I would have is, obviously, the 5-year plan was reviewed by the Strategic Planning Committee of Council. they would not have had any input on this movement, but in theory, it would also go back to town council during any kind of a bonding authorization. They would certainly still have an ability to raise any concerns at that time. The only other comment I'll make for the, that fiscal year is, there is obviously some projects that are not on here because they're a matter of ongoing negotiations and, depending upon what fiscal year those could potentially hit, are an unknown right now.
We'll deal with them when they come.
Right, but it's just another unknown that could come.
Yeah, I mean, I guess my only concern is I don't like to unilaterally make decisions on specific projects without talking to council. What I would recommend we do is almost just send a letter to council that's stating, we would be comfortable
Support that.
using X dollars of fund balance to, directly pay for projects that they prioritize. Because typically they prioritize, or the first selectman prioritizes the projects, and then we finance them. So, I mean, I think it would be great to say, we would like to finance up to, $1.5 million from the fund balance to take care of capital projects at the discretion of town council and the first selectman.
Right, yeah, but I'm not talking about how we finance it. I'm talking about where we show it in the years. And let's be very, very clear that the charter gives us the last word on what the budget looks like going out to the public. So there's
No question about it, but I mean, if
Okay.
you think about it, up until
Okay.
5 years ago, there wasn't a 5-year capital plan either. So
I got it.
this is more of a footnote form than anything else. So, I mean, I would recommend just changing the funding sources on projects, because honestly, council has spent a lot of time working on that project. And to me, I just don't think it's the right way to handle it, just to change it without including them in that. I mean, the capital plan is put together by, their committee and for working with the first selectman, and, they've got quite an involved process, which I respect because I think they've done a great job with it. And everything's vetted ahead of time. So
Mike,
all I'm saying is just put it down as a funding source on whether you do it as a footnote on that page or,
Mike, this is Mary again. I'm kind of leaning on the side of where Steve is going, because I think it's important that the $1.5 million, if we're going to take it out of the fund and give it for a capital project. One of the things I asked Joe a few weeks ago at the Board of Education workshop that we had, what makes him uncomfortable at night, and he specifically said infrastructure. And moving $1.5 million into a roof, okay, and showing that as a capital project, I think is a big plus.
right, but it's already shown as a capital project.
But
The
it's
only thing you're
moving
changing
it, but
The only
but
thing
it-
you're changing is the funding source.
right, but you're moving it also from from the
next year.
24-25 into the 23-24, of which the town is going to vote on the referendum on May 2nd. And I think that's important. I think Steve makes a very good point on that.
Yeah, I'm not interested in changing the funding source or having that discussion tonight. I'm interested in reflecting to the town that we want to move the work up a year or up 2 years, depending upon which roof you're talking about. That's the piece that I think is important. That and the idea.
I just
that
don't think that's our decision to make unilaterally. I just don't agree with that.
Okay. Well, I disagree, so.
I mean,
can
we've
go over
never made a capital decision without talking to the town council, have we?
So can we take it to the town council and specifically ask them this?
Well, we will do that anyways. That's what every capital project. I'm just saying, I just don't support changing the budget or their plan without, conferring with them on it. Maybe they see something they'd rather have moved up quicker too.
I'm sure if I asked
Maybe
Chris
they know of
Nowacki
a
what
project that
things
we
he'd
don't
like to
even know
move up,
about yet. You know what I
he'd
mean?
come up with $1 million worth of, he could come up with $1.5 million.
I'm not even done with capital.
What's that?
Well, my suggestion might be to take that discussion point to the town council.
Well, but we can't do it between now
We
and Monday.
don't
which
have
is-
time, exactly, we
Yeah,
don't
we
have
don't have
time for
time.
that. The other issue you might have, Mary, is that you might not be able to get the roof done on the timing by the time you go out to bid and getting into the projects, you know what I'm saying? There's a lot of process involved in getting a roof done that it doesn't happen as quick as you might think it does.
I just have a suggestion to throw out there. I think it would be very appropriate for Board of Finance to identify a comfort level of funding that should a surplus of whatever, in other words, a funding level that you feel would be appropriate to accelerate capital projects upon further due diligence with the Board of Ed and the town council and my office on, in other words, let's say, hey, here's a number that we're all comfortable with, as long as everything comes out good at the end of the
Correct.
fiscal year.
I
And
would love
we would
that.
ask the first selectman, the superintendent and town council to evaluate and reprioritize
Fast-track
some of those later items. And you can say you've already identified Jockey Hollow Roof as one of those items, but let's look at some of the other things that might be in the mix as well. I think it sends the clear message that I think, Mary, you're asking for, which is a good one, that, listen, I'm all for accelerating infrastructure projects on, enterprise-wide, Board of Ed and town side, but, we have spent a lot of time with council to try and make sure we balance out the bonding issues, and that's my only concern of let's kind of, take kind of a broader picture of it and not just.
I would agree with that completely, because I think putting the number out there that we would like to accelerate capital projects is wonderful, but the Board of Ed should really decide on their schedule for the roofs. We're just giving them the opportunity to do it quicker if they need to, or town council as well, instead of pigeonholing something that we don't know the process, we don't know the bidding, we don't know all the things that are going to go into it. We're not involved with. So I just think it's a little presumptuous for us to tell them what they should fast track. I think we should give them the option to fast track based on a dollar amount.
So, Mike,
Well, that's what they've done.
one
They
more
brought that to
question.
us.
Yeah, one more question. Joe, is it feasible to go out and try to source it in the upcoming year from July 1st and have it done by June 30th of 2024?
So that you're ready to do it in the summer.
It would
Yeah, you
be,
typically do roofs in the summer, Mary, because
That's right, yeah. you'd have to
it would be
do
tricky
something, right?
because you probably wouldn't be able to get it. getting it done this summer, so you'd have to be.
No, not this
getting
summer.
it- It would, I'm saying after July 1 now, I mean, you'd be looking at starting it,
You have 15 months to get your ducks in order so that you
Yeah.
can start in June of next year.
if you could finish it like, when we did it at Massac, we started before school got out. It was towards the end, so probably the end of May, and they worked through most of the summer, so you probably, 15 months you could.
Great, great. Thanks, Joe.
It's an accelerated timeline.
So we don't have-
Yeah, you'd have to hit the ground now with an RFP.
Exactly.
Yeah.
right, that's what I'm saying, is like,
Yeah.
you know what I mean? And you don't know with, all the work that's been pushed back and all the supply chain issues,
Yeah.
the roofing companies might be booked up too. I mean, there's a lot of variables is all I'm saying. So I just don't want to pigeonhole us into a
Yeah.
specific project. I want to leave it open for everybody. I think it sends the same message. We want to fast track capital, which is great. We're all in agreement there.
Mhm.
I just don't think we should pick particular specific projects without talking to the other parties.
And the other parties being the town
The
council.
Board of Ed and the town council.
Okay,
Yeah. And town
It's not
council,
for
I
us to
mean,
tell the Board of Ed when they should do their roof.
But the Board of Ed, well, so I have a question. So Joe just presented to us moving the two roofs in by a certain period of time. Is that just coming out of Joe, or did the board itself have any input?
That was just conversations with Dan Profit.
So you all would still take that up? Would you
Yeah.
think your body would have an objection?
No.
Okay. So the superintendent supports it, and the chairman of the board is saying he believes the board would support it, so the message should go forward. However, you know, we obviously disagree on whether we should update a document so that people can see it. But I think the takeaway message should be that we're in support of them doing it. Let them figure out, you know, what their schedule for putting out RFPs is, when they would start the construction, all of that good stuff. But putting this on the table now, at least with our support, you know, we can go then to the council or whatever, gives them a heads up that, yeah, this is something that might happen. That, like, you have our support in pursuing this, which is what I think is the important takeaway.
Oh, okay.
Where does everybody else come down on this? I think we all know where.
I do agree with Ken. We need to determine a number we're comfortable with, if the year ends well, and get a wish list from all the departments in town and evaluate it that way.
Okay. Rebecca?
Same. I just feel like I want the ducks to be in the right row, you know, process versus us approaching council with them. I want council to approach finance with it.
Right, I agree. Catherine, I think you're the last one we haven't heard from.
I do agree with all of that. I think it's best that we stick to process.
All right, so what if is everybody comfortable based on the information we have, talking about $1.5 million? Start there.
$1.5 million, Mike, moving it into capital without bonding for the upcoming budget.
Correct. Basically taking $1.5 million off the capital plan and from bonding over a number of years and moving it into funding by the fund balance.
I'm fine with that, Mike.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yes, yes.
Okay. So what I would recommend is, you know, we add a footnote of sorts that says just that, you know, we would propose, you know, to the first selectman to, you know, recommend to work with the town council, the Board of Ed, the Board of Finance to recommend projects to, you know, be funded by up to $1.5 million of the fund balance.
What is, Mike, this is Rebecca. What does that do to the range that we, like our policy has on the fund balance?
So we're relatively over already, and I'm sure Ron can give us exact numbers, but
That's the other question that Ron was going to answer.
So,
I
waiting
know he's
for
been working on it.
because, you know, to Joe's point, he was very hesitant to give out a number for just Board of Ed, but I think one of your other questions was how was the town practice?
Yeah.
Whole.
Yep.
So using the Board of Ed range, obviously this involves surplus related to the revenue. There was $810,000 of fund balance assigned this year. That doesn't look like it's going to need to be used, but that reduces the surplus on the revenue side. Okay.
Yeah.
Looks like we're tracking at about 1.2 of revenue surplus. Okay, all in Board of Ed revenue it looks like we're gonna fall in the 2 to 3 range.
Into what, Ron? I couldn't hear you. Into how much?
2 to 3 million range,
Including what Joe said of his,
including the Board of Ed, yes.
okay,
So look at, those are, our best estimates at this point.
so
Pretty
if
much
we
what-
move,
Pretty much
so-
what we are
Sign.
appropriating or assigning in the current budget.
Right, so that puts us right back in,
So it's right back at 20.
So it puts us-
Possibly.
right.
Yeah.
So we
So
are,
Ron,
we-
the current fund balance, okay, right now is like at 20 million, right?
Correct.
Okay, so if we moved 4 out of that, it would put it at 16, but we're possibly gonna get another 2 to 3 million coming back in for for what we didn't spend this year. So we're back up into the 18-19 million dollar.
Right.
Good.
And then we're talking about taking another 1.5 million out of that.
Right.
No, that would include it because we said 2.5 for the 2.5 on the mill rate, Mike, and then 1.5 million out of,
So that would be 4 then, right?
yeah, it would be 4. So the 20 million would go to 16, and then we would put back in on July 1st, somewhere around another 2 to 3. So we'd be back up at the
Correct.
19 range, which I think is
Correct.
good.
So are you looking to assign, you're looking to assign 4 million, and on the expenditure side, you're looking to appropriate 1.5 for capital?
Well,
So that
I
would
think
actually
what
be
we, I think Heidi was, in last week's meeting, I think we left when she was doing the mill rate calculations, I think we had 2.5 or 2.6 in there. Correct me if I'm wrong, Heidi.
Yeah, I thought it was 2.6, but
yeah, I thought it was 2.6.
I thought it was 2.6 too, yeah.
Unmute, sorry about that. I wasn't quite sure where we left off. I had all the options on the table and I don't know that a decision was made on which.
Well, Heidi, you
No,
don't
but
have
I
to put,
think-
you don't have to
I
put the
think
spreadsheet
Heidi,
up,
we
but do you
were
have it in
trying
front of
to
you?
get to Mike wanted, he was looking at a comfort level of an increase of just under the 2,
2,
under the
correct.
2. And I think it was like 1.99 if we use the 2.6.
Mhm.
So Heidi, you don't have to put the spreadsheet up, but if you have it in front of you, can you just confirm if you plug in using 2.6 million of fund balance along with the collection rate that we agreed upon, whether that resulting number as it sits right now is just under 2%?
A moment. So we will reduce it down by 400,000.
Somewhere.
That's right.
So the mill rate would be 1 million, I'm sorry, 37.455. And it would be a 1.88% increase.
1.88.
And that's with what, Heidi? That's with
2.6.
That's reducing
2.6.
down
2.6, right?
down to 2.6. Yes, it's a $400,000 adjustment.
400 away.
Yeah.
Good.
Yeah,
So-
that
so
1.88
that's-
was the
yeah.
number.
1.8 was the number.
Mhm.
What? Okay, so that's great. So that's it for the Board of Ed discussion, I think.
Okay, so
Mike,
just to close the loop on my question though, with the
Please.
general fund and the range and our policy range, we're still gonna be above it or
yes,
we're still above it?
Mhm.
we're
Okay,
basically gonna come out where we are right now.
Where we are right
just-
now.
Just $1 million or so lower. Yes.
right, okay. That's
So
where
we're
my head
still
is.
at the high end, right? Right.
Yeah.
We're over our high end.
We're over the high.
Yeah.
Yep.
So I guess, Mike, my question would be, do we increase the amount for the capital project?
Well, see, here's how I would look at it.
And
We certainly could. And you could logically argue that. The only thing I don't love is, we're still up in the air on the final numbers.
Right,
And
okay,
we can always allocate more fund balance, I mean, we can do it in July once we have, all the numbers done.
Right.
So, we could certainly do 2 million, you know what I mean? I have no issue with that.
Well, and they
I
can
just
always
don't know-
come during the year, right?
Correct,
Correct.
exactly.
Right.
We could always
Okay,
come during
so
the
I'm
year.
not
and-
gonna-
Anything bonding or a special appropriation
It
is
can,
gonna
yeah,
go before all the bodies anyway in town meeting, so
okay,
you can.
So.
But I mean,
Well,
if
well,
you
do that more, you do that more when you have certainty on project price and what you have available,
right, okay.
without necessarily.
So I would argue, as long as you're not using the revenue surplus and you're using the expenditure surplus.
You don't.
Right.
It's not right.
You can just make the transfer
You can do
and
the
it's already
transfer, yes.
appropriated funds being
That is,
reappropriated at that
you're right.
Correct.
You're absolutely right.
Right, okay,
Correct.
okay, thank you.
No problem.
Mike, this is Mary. I'm good right now and don't have any other questions if we stick to the 1.88. And then
Okay.
the 1.5.
And I'm in agreement with you. So that's 2 of us down. How's everybody else feeling?
This is Greg. I'm in agreement with all of that.
Well, this is Steve. I'm in agreement with that, but I've got another issue.
Go for it.
So I want to
Well,
talk about.
let's do this. Let's just go. Let's ask the rest of the people just so we can put that to bed because we let 3 of us talk.
Yes,
So
Yeah.
how's everybody else feel about that? Then we'll get to Steve's issue.
Yeah, this is Rebecca. I'm in agreement.
This is Catherine. I'm in agreement with that.
Okay. All right, Steve, you're up.
Hey, before we move on from that, this is Ron. Can I
Sure.
I just want to get clarity. So 1.5, you're not looking to assign it in the budget. It'll be a footnote in the capital and we'll address it when we have
Correct.
clarity on the final numbers.
Yes.
Okay,
Exactly. Perfect. Okay, Steve, you're up.
thank you. Sorry.
And Joe will get a chance to go in front of the town council and Ken and pitch his infrastructure deal on the roof. Which he says he can get done within the next year's timing.
Well, we'll see. I might put a dollar bet on that one. I've dealt with a lot of roofs in my life and Steve's been on them too, so they're not always the easiest projects to get done.
no, they're not, but I'm thinking you've got 15 months to get it planned. I mean, worst case is you start down the road and, supply chain or something says you push it off, but you've got
Right.
you've got all the planning
No.
done out of the way.
I'm not saying we're not gonna try. I'm just saying that
That's the
be
lead
real,
time.
I'm a realist.
Something
Yeah.
Shovel ready, may
That's right.
avail yourself of a grant or something that you wouldn't otherwise
It's
have.
between now and shovel ready. That's where we've gotten hung up in the past.
Always a good thing.
Yeah.
Correct.
Okay, so I would like to talk about roads. Surprise. Unfortunately, we have not had, the town council has not had the formal presentation by VHB.
Bye, guys. Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye, Joe.
for
Thank
coming.
you.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thank
Thanks,
you.
Joe.
However, the report, which I'll now call a draft because they are revising it. And now I'll lay the cards on the table. I noticed an error and Chris Nowacki talked to them and confirmed. But the issue that I want to focus on is the part of the report that talks about what happens at various spending levels over the next 5 years. And they have given us, as they have in every previous report, 3 spending level options. And this year they increased it a little bit to 1.5 million a year, 2.5 million a year, or 3.5 million a year. And there
It was 2.3.
2 point,
or 3. But you're in the ballpark.
I'm in the ballpark, okay. I have,
Because of
but-
inflation, yes.
Right.
Yep.
And so they put out a chart that says if you spend at those levels, where will you be in 5 years? And if you spend at the low level, your road conditions are actually going to decline over where they were in the actual analysis in December. If you spend at the $2.5 million level per year, you'll basically end up where you are today at the end of 5 years. And if you spend at the 3.5-ish, whatever level, you'll actually get up into the 80 range, around 82 as a PCI, pavement condition index, on a scale of 100. Originally, when we were sold, when this whole project was pitched to the town in 2010, they said we'd be between 82 and 85 after 10 years. We're 12 years in now. 5 years from now is 17 years, and that's spending 3.5 million. If you look at all in what's in the budget right now, it's about 2.5 million. That, understand that some of that is the operating budget, which is not actually roads. Understand that some of that money is also non-asphalt things from the operating budget. And understand that 500,000 is a special grant for Old Zor Road. I think we need to start spending at the $3.5 million level. So, I mean, I don't know why every 4 years they come in and they tell us what we need to do to make a significant inroads, and we don't. We don't spend at those levels. So what I would like to do, without just figuring out what the best funding source is to put another $1 million of road work in, whether that's through bonding, in which case you'd have a little bit of bonding expense that would have to hit the budget, or whether we say we're going to take it out of the fund. I don't care particularly which way, but I do think we have to plan on doing more roads in order to move the project along. At the rate we're doing miles per year, we're never going to get through the 140-ish miles of center lane miles of road we have. So that's where I'm at. I just think, you know, they keep telling us, and I think it's time we listen to them. That's
I think, you know, I don't disagree with the premise, because I think, you know, I've been involved with the roads for a lot of years too. I was on, you know, in the early days. I guess my question is, I don't know that it's a 1-year fix.
No, and actually what I would do. To your point,
I think it needs to be a 5-year plan.
Right, so on page 197, Mike, and again, sort of goes to what I talked about on education. If you go to page 197, which is the 5-year capital plan, the first line under public works there had, first line says 1.5 million for the upcoming fiscal year. That's 1 million of the normal spend and the 500,000 of the Old Zor grant. And then the out years are also $1 million. And so I would, you know, number one, change this year, or change the year we're talking about financially, and then do the out years and raise that to 2 million. And again, how we fund it at that point in time, I don't know. But I think we ought to at least book a plan that matches what the professionals are telling us.
Again, I don't disagree, but I don't like to move unilaterally. I mean, I think you got to get council on board with that, right?
Yeah, I mean, it is unfortunate that we didn't get the presentation to council in time. You know, Chris did find some anomalies around the same time Steve did as well. So we wanted to make sure that they didn't, hopefully it's, you know, just a couple of anomalies that they need to fix, but they need to go back and make sure that their QA is correct. I did not, so all I have is a draft at this point as well. My recollection, I don't have it in front of me, was at the $2.3 million investment, adjusted for inflation, the PCI did continue to increase. And one of his comments was slow and steady wins the race, that you don't want to, again, I would like to have him before council so that I and others can ask all the questions, that we are asking here right now. In the past, when he's been here 4 years ago, he's said, yes, if you want to do this, you could, but you know, he's said that our plan is sound, and that at the 2-3, the PCI did continue to increase. It wasn't,
Yeah,
flat.
it gets to,
yeah.
that's, it gets
So
78 to 81. Yeah, it's 1.5
So
million or
everyone's-
2.3 or 3.5. Those were the
Right.
three
I do agree that it's a very appropriate note that because the cost of materials and labor have gone up so much that we probably do need to, we need to think about that in the outer years. Agree. We do have 2.5 million this year. Some of that is a grant. I think that as the capital plan continues to evolve, I think we need to look at that number in the subsequent years after fiscal year 24, and we probably need to have a higher number there because of that, to get the same amount of, to get the same bang for our buck, so to speak. I got the general feeling that our spend for 24 was going to be comfortable to keep us on track, but I think after 24 we need to look at again, as Steve said, we are programming a grant this year that we're not going to be able to rely on and subsidy, so we'll have to figure that out.
Yeah, to
So,
me, I would love to get everybody, like we'd always talked about, was having another, joint meeting, agreeing on a 5-year plan at one shot. That, maybe that does start in 24, but I think that's what we've got to do without a doubt. I don't disagree. We're going to need to get more, but I think we also need to get everybody on board at the same time.
So my final comment, Mike, is simply going to be what I said before. We have by charter the authority to make changes. I sat in this room in 2002 when the Charter Revision Commission argued week after week over who should have the final say before it goes to the voters. And even though they proposed at one point making it the council, they made it the Board of Finance. And so
nobody's arguing that, Steve. I mean, I don't disagree.
I understand not wanting to get in fights like existed in the past. I am concerned that the pendulum has swung to the point that the Board of Finance is unilaterally giving up its delegated or legal authorities. And I think that it's a concern I have. I said I will express it. I've now expressed it. And so that's all I really have to say.
No, I certainly don't argue we have the authority to do it. But also, one of the things that I love that we've done in this town, be it with the Board of Ed, be it with the town council, be it with the first selectman's office, is we work as a cohesive unit nowadays, and we didn't always. And I think one of the reasons we do work as a cohesive unit is because we don't use our authority just because we have it. So I'm not saying we couldn't do it. I'm not saying we don't have the statutory authority. I'm just saying that I believe it's better to have a conversation with all the parties involved before you make your statutory authority decision. That is your final decision. So that's all I'm saying is I just think it's good politics. It's good business. It's good culture to involve people in a decision before you just unilaterally make it. And if you think that's giving up our authority, well, then I'll plead guilty to that, because I do believe working as a team and having conversations before making unilateral decisions has benefited us in general. So we can agree to disagree. We certainly have the ability.
I agree with your point. The problem that I've got is the process that we have in place now with this budget cycle, and when we meet with them, doesn't allow for that. So what I think we have
Well,
to
it
do,
makes it difficult. There's no question about it.
So what I think we have to do going forward, to your point, is we have to have a second joint meeting with the town council before we approve a budget.
I don't
Now, it's
disagree. And we did a couple of years ago. We did. Yes, but I don't disagree with that either.
Take that away for to do.
We'll put
for
that on the
next year.
calendar for next year, because I happen to agree with you on that too. And we should have
Okay.
done that and we didn't. That's on me. So I will
Okay.
take responsibility for that.
Then that's fine. another joint meeting, and we book it into the normal, into what.
I mean,
will
the
become
good
normal
news
schedule.
with capital in general is none of what we do in the budget is binding. It's just a recommendation. And I do think we should have a full roads meeting in the summer with council and really agree to a 5-year plan and be done with it once and for all. Because you know as well as I do that, we had done that once and it never got followed through with.
Fair enough.
Fair enough. Awesome.
Yeah.
Anybody
I'm
got
not
anything
opposed
else?
to once we get the final analysis from VHB, council digests it, we can discuss it here, just whatever, have a special, I don't care, however we want to do it. And we can still, I have no problem asking SBC to meet. I mean, the whole point of SBC is to meet during the year as well as new capital, issues come up. So we could entertain it with them, with the full council and we want to modify,
Yeah, I mean, for this year, I think we probably need to do that between now and, just going forward. But I think for the next budget cycle, we need to put a joint session with the council in our calendar.
Yeah.
Agreed.
Okey doke.
yeah, I mean, at the beginning, you attend one of their meetings, so at the end, they can attend one of your meetings.
Perfect.
Sounds good to me.
I'm all for it.
All right. So are we there?
We're there.
We done?
I don't know if there's
Yeah.
anything else. Was there any
No.
other new news?
There was no
from-
new news.
The only other thing that I think was unresolved is we talked about interest income and, there's still we could leave it where it is. You probably have a little bit of room there, but it's your call. I'll let Frank, he's gonna shoot.
As I did the analysis, again, Mike, as we talked last time, there was a range, right?
Right.
The range was, we were gonna stay flat at the STIP rate where it is today. We looked at a range that took us to about 5%, which we're closing in on that as the start of the next fiscal year. And we would do a gradual reduction, about 20 basis points a month. And then we did one which was a little more aggressive, which was again getting to that 5%, reducing it by 40 basis points a month throughout the year. And that's probably real aggressive. And that's what brought us in at the 1.3, which was an increase from the initial projection that Ken had at 1 million.
Right.
If again, I think where we are today, we saw how quickly the interest rate went up. Because I mean, at the beginning of the year, we were getting like 0.1%. And right now we're close to 5%. I don't ever see it really dropping that quickly. There's an anticipation that we're going to see a recession this year. How deep, how long, not sure. That will drive some interest rates down. But to Ken's point, there's probably still a little bit more room.
Well, I mean, and I'm gonna
1.3, 1.5, give you a little bit more leeway to plug it into the budget if you want it.
I don't disagree. My thought process, and again, maybe this is overthinking it, is, I know we did the 1.3. We could go to 1.5, but I also look at it, we're at a 1.8 increase right now, which I believe would have a decent chance of going on the first referendum. If it didn't, for some reason, this would be an easy place for the first selectman to make an adjustment without affecting services or the Board of Education or anything else. So my thought process would be to keep it in my back pocket, or the first selectman's back pocket, but certainly open for discussion.
Yeah, that's fine by me. The one, I'm comfortable with the 1.88.
I'm comfortable too, Mike.
Same here, Mike.
Yes, as am I.
Me too, Mike. Rebecca
Okay.
speaking.
All
We're
right,
good.
then I guess we're good to go then.
So now the question is, do we have motions prepared or are we coming back on Monday to do all the.
I think Heidi.
We have motions.
Motions.
We have motions, all
Yeah,
right.
just
The
to be
only
clear,
bad news
these-
I have for you is I'm on a phone and about to sit down to a dinner, so I don't know if I'll be able to read motions, but I can certainly vote. So
Okay,
I'll make Steve do mine.
no, we go around the room. but
I know.
We'll have
I'll
to
try.
control it we'll have to control it from here, Mike.
I'll take your
One
word on
thing,
control.
one thing I would like to suggest, maybe we could pause for a few minutes. I want to have Ron come down just to make sure everything looks like it should.
Perfect, yeah.
This-
Take a 5 minutes and do it and we'll reconvene in 5 minutes.
The
10 minutes.
final assignment of fund balance was 2.6.
2.6.
2.6, yes.
2.6 on the fund
2.6.
balance, yes.
All right,
Perfect.
so are you just taking a short recess?
Yeah, 10-minute recess?
Yeah, 10-minute recess, perfect.
All right.
There.
At, at 7:09
Halfway down.
PM?
Yeah.
You're back on at 7:29.
So Mike,
Mighty,
So as long as there's no objections, we don't have to call on everyone. We can just do it that way.
That's right. So what I was gonna say, Mike, is I'll go ahead and start, and for Catherine, I don't think it's been through one of these. We go around in order. So I'll read a motion and Greg will second it. And then we will ask for all the yays, then we'll ask for all the nays. And as long as there are,
You're gonna put that up.
it's unanimous, we don't have to do a roll call. Then Greg will
Does he have?
read the next
I don't know
motion
what to do.
and Rebecca will second it. And we'll go around over to Mary and to Catherine and then back to me in that round robin. And I guess you want to be left out, Mike?
Yeah,
Okay.
if that's doable, yes, that'd be great.
Okay, that's fine. So the 5 of us will be in the round robin and you just get to say yay.
gets the vote.
Yeah.
I just want to make sure Mary knows we're back on because she's muted and not there, so.
I'm here.
Oh, good.
Good job,
All
Mary.
right. You can see the screen, Mary?
Yeah, I can see the screen.
All right, good.
Can everybody hear me?
Yes.
Yes,
Yes.
All right.
okay. All right.
All right, thanks, Mike.
I would
Steve
just
Kerr.
ask,
Perfect.
one thing I would ask is that when you read these motions, just give me enough time to update the vote. Because I have to
Yeah.
do I seconded, if any discussion in the vote, and that way I can give it to Diane complete when we're done.
Yes, so each of us should say our name as we make the motion or second. And then I'll just go ahead and call for the actual vote.